So now that the Bulls have started fleshing out their front office, making the hires of Steven Mervis and AC Law now official, Mervis is the Senior Vice President of Basketball Operations, effectively the GM, the Mark Eversley equivalent, and then AC Law, the Head of Player Personnel. I'm sure there are going to be other lower-level front office hires as well coming down the pipeline, but with that being the primary focus of Bryson Graham as his first order of business since taking over the job, now the focus will be on the head coaching search, which, according to Casey Johnson, will begin heating up. And they have, of course, floated by a number of names that are in the mix, including Wes Unseld Jr., who is the Bulls' current associate head coach and the lead assistant, and was actually the acting head coach for one game when Billy Donovan stepped away after the passing of his father. James Borrego, Sean Sweeney, Micah Nori, and Dave Bliss are all the other candidates being considered. And so even though this is some very early initial reporting, I don't believe it's been confirmed that any of these guys have come in for interviews quite yet. I'm sure a lot of you are asking, well, who are these guys? What are their backgrounds and how would they fit with the Bulls and what they're trying to build out? Well, let's talk about it. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. By the way, guys, we are nearing 50,000 subscribers, about 3,000 to go, and I cannot thank you all enough for the support on the channel over the years. It's crazy that I've been doing this for over 5 years now, and it's great to see you still on in here despite all the ups and downs following this team, mostly downs of course, but it does mean a lot to me, and if you haven't already, it would mean a great deal if you subscribe to help us get to 50K. But anyway, let's talk about some of these coaching candidates that are expected to be interviewed. Let's start with Wes Unseld Jr. because he was the one who was brought in just 2 seasons ago as the Bulls' lead assistant. He was brought in that summer in 2024 when the Bulls started that initial pivot from the current core. They traded Alex Caruso, they executed the sign and trade for DeMar DeRozan, and look, while I won't deny that Unseld has a great deal of experience in the coaching space. He's been an assistant coach in the NBA dating all the way back to 2005, coming straight out of college where he took an assistant coaching job with the Wizards. He moved around as an assistant coach, going to the Warriors, the Magic, the Nuggets, and then finally landing his first head coaching job with the Wizards until he was fired from that job after 4 disappointing seasons with the team. To me, and I just go back to what I've been saying since they fired AK, the Bulls need a completely fresh start, a clean slate all the way down to the coaching staff. That's why I was completely fine with Billy Donovan leaving, and sure, maybe out of respect, they're giving Unseld a chance to take the head coaching role, but I just think they need an outside hire for this job. And look, it would be one thing if Unseld had really shown some great things when he was the head coach of the Wizards, despite the franchise being a disaster and the roster construction a mess. But that Wizards team, when he first joined anyway, they weren't supposed to be tanking. They still had Bradley Beal, they had Porzingis, Gafford, Kyle Kuzma, Hachimura, and they were pretty underwhelming. They couldn't make the playoffs, they kept finishing 12th, not good enough for a top pick, and Unseld was fired after they started off the season 7-36. Again, I know it wasn't an ideal situation for Unseld to really succeed, but this also wasn't a scenario where he did some impressive things or had some great player development wins to the point where I would be like, okay, yeah, he should be the Bulls' next head coach. Now, as far as the rest of these candidates, I think these are more intriguing options. Of all these candidates, the only one that with head coaching experience is James Borrego, who I guess I should say maybe I'm not as high on or the least intrigued by, only because his head coaching experience hasn't been the best. He's been an assistant coach in the league dating all the way back to 2003, where he was an assistant with the Spurs for 7 years, which that's saying something. Anytime you're coaching under one of the greatest coaches of all time and being mentored under Greg Popovich is a good thing. He then was an assistant in New Orleans when they were the Hornets at the time. Then he made a stopover in Orlando as an assistant, was actually the interim head coach after Jacques Vaughn was fired mid-season. Then he went back to the Spurs for 3 seasons from 2015 to 2018. That was after the Magic decided to hire Scott Skiles instead of Borrego full-time, even though he was the interim head coach for most of the year. Then he would land his first head coaching job with the Charlotte Hornets, where he was with the team for 4 years and didn't do so well. Never made the playoffs. They ended up making the play-in in 2022 and got bounced in that first game, after which the Hornets fired James Borrego, and then he would return to being an assistant coach, the lead assistant for the Pelicans in 2023, until most recently being the interim head coach for most of this season when the Pelicans fired Willie Green early on in the year. And in his time as the interim head coach this season with the Pelicans, he was okay. I mean, the Pelicans looked better than what they were under Willie Green, but they still went 24-46 under Borrego's leadership. Not a great roster, of course, but also not very impressive results either. And I don't don't know about you, but I think it's telling that after he was the interim head coach for most of the season, the Pelicans still opted to hire someone else and not even give James Borrego an interview to take on the full-time job. So even though I think there was value in bringing in a guy that already has head coaching experience, Borrego and Unseld Jr., I mean, their records during their tenures as head coaches was pretty underwhelming. And so I see that and I'm just like, come on now, the Bulls can do better. And when I look at some of the cases where these first-time head coaches are being brought in and succeeding, particularly young coaches who bring in fresh new set of ideas and understand how the game has evolved into what it is today, I'm much more intrigued by these other names that were mentioned. So Sean Sweeney is a name we've been hearing about a bit. 41 years old, he's been an assistant coach in the league since he was in his 20s, starting out with the Brooklyn Nets in 2013. He was an assistant coach for the Bucks for 4 seasons, then went to Detroit as an assistant for 3 years, then the Mavs for 4 years, and then he finally landed his first associate head coaching position, the lead assistant under Mitch Johnson for the San Antonio Spurs. And I mean, given everything we've seen from the Spurs this year, and I know it helps when you have Wemby, who was healthy most of the season and truly broke out into a top 5 player in the league, but for the Spurs, a team that went from missing the play-in to a championship contender, being one of the lead coaches on the bench says a lot about your abilities, your approach to structuring a team's offense, and your focus on player development on some of these young players. I'll also note that Sweeney was the assistant coach on the Mavericks during their run to the finals under Jason Kidd. So the man has experience in deep playoff runs on the bench, even though he's never been the lead guy as a head coach. Now, Sweeney, like Dave Bliss, who I'll get to in a second, have also been more defensively minded coaches. He's been mainly in charge of the Spurs and their defense this season, which is great. I would absolutely love to have a more defensively minded head coach for the Bulls. Bring me back to the Tibbs days. I love those days. But I do think it's important to note that Bryson Graham, in his introductory presser, he stressed the importance of having a coach that is great on both sides of the ball and not one that is more offensively or defensively minded. Maybe it's a non-issue, but something to call out nonetheless. Now, when it comes to Dave Bliss, also a younger guy by coaching standards anyway, 40 years old. He's been an assistant coach with the Thunder since 2019. So he was actually an assistant coach under Billy Donovan to start his coaching tenure with the team. He's been in charge of the Thunder's defense, who have been the best defensive team in the league for 2 straight seasons and top 5 in the last 3 years. I mean, look, man, anytime you're talking about young assistant coaches for some of the best run organizations in the league, in the Thunder and the Spurs, even if they don't have the requisite head coaching experience, I am all for it. Bring me that every day. Give me some young, fresh blood that come from top organizations. We need that. And then the last guy was Micah Nori, who, if you remember, was believed to be the coach that Matt Lloyd was going to bring over when everyone thought Matt Lloyd was a shoo-in for the lead executive role. Nori is currently the lead assistant for the Timberwolves under Chris Finch and has been in that role since 2021, but has had extensive coaching experience as an assistant dating all the way back to 2009, serving as an assistant to the Raptors, the Kings, Nuggets, and Pistons before coming to the Timberwolves. Very talented coach that has been praised for his player development and player relationships, and also just having a knack for networking and being well connected throughout the league. I'd be open to this. Another team that has done well, has been coached well, some deep playoff runs. So yeah, I like the idea of Micah Nori. Oh, also, Tiago Splitter has been listed as a potential candidate, according to Jake Fisher. Splitter was the Blazers interim head coach, and in my opinion, did a very nice job with the Blazers team, who exceeded expectations, went all the way to the playoffs for the first time in years, and hey, he helped the Bulls get the 15th pick, so I'll forever love him for that. I would say among all of these candidates, the two I'm the highest on are Sean Sweeney and Dave Bliss. I think either of those guys would be my ideal given their age, their experience coming from winning organizations, strong aptitude for defense. Then I would say it's followed by Nori, then Splitter, then Borrego, and then finally Wes Unseld Jr. We'll see how the process plays out. I imagine the Bulls would like to have a new head coach in place prior to the draft, definitely before free agency and summer league, so the new head coach can have some input on some of the roster personnel decisions being made. So hopefully we get some more details in the coming weeks. In the meantime, though, I would love to hear what you guys think. You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.